It's 5:31. I'd like to call the Shoreline Fire Department RFA board meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we read into the minutes, Beatrice, that Commissioner Hillen has an excused absence?
Yes.
This special meeting on October 30th, 2025 is a public hearing for the budget, benefit charge, and other revenue sources. We'll open the public hearing. Pursuit of RCW 84.55, the Shoreline Fire Department RFA is required to hold a public meeting on revenue source for the department's following year's expense budget. This hearing is now being called to order for the purpose of receiving citizens' comments and questions related to the 2026 budget and reviewing and establishing the department's 2026 fire benefit charge. The notice of the hearing was posted on September 29th of 2025. Any citizens wish that are...
That's during the public.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll turn it over to Chief.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna share. Yeah, this one. Where's the share on this? Is it more? Oh, there it is.
Weird.
It's not set up the same.
I know.
Okay. Rick and Lisa, can you see the spreadsheet? Okay, cool. So I'm gonna give a quick overview of where we're at, the financial picture, and we have a meeting coming up on Monday where we can go into greater detail in any areas of the budget. Tonight is really to give you a snapshot and to give a recommendation of at least where we're at tonight with the fire benefit charge, and hopefully it won't change from there moving forward. But we still, just as a caveat, we still don't have our final AB numbers either, so there still could be some fluctuations that can occur. So to start with, and I have sent this file to you guys about 20 minutes ago. So you have this digitally for you to review. This is an expansion of what I had sent last week, providing an update tonight, and then again we'll meet on Monday and we can talk about that here at the end if you'd like. So to start with, we are projecting, and this was not a surprise, quite a bit of funds at the end of this year in our general fund, or our cash on hand, if you will. That is, there's a couple of reasons for that. The combining of funds, but also we had decided to not do transfers this year in preparation for the conglomerate, the new organizational joining of all those funds. So we knew that we were going to be carrying some extra cash on hand to the tune of about $23,813,000. This comes from this tab here, the cash on hand tab. And this is a tab that Rachel works on, looking at the final 3 months of the year in projected, cash receipts, and then average disbursements down here, and where we started at 18.5 million, or I'm sorry, 16.8 million, and then finishing at 23.8 million. And so that comes over here to our summary. The minimum funds needed to start 2026. That 8.3 million is a reflection of the first quarter of the year expenses minus any expected cash receipts, plus a $700,000 buffer. If I was to click here, you'd see that formula up there, which basically takes the expenses I just mentioned, a quarter of the year, plus a $700,000 buffer. So what that means is that we're carrying over an extra $15.5 million in our cash on hand. But of course, like I mentioned, we have anticipated that we're going to have some bigger transfers, which you'll see the big one here is in the capital on line 10 of nearly $6 million. And we need to carry out a little bit to the reserve, the 184,000, because of increased expenses, and that's to maintain a 15% reserve. Okay, and we need to transfer out to MIH a bit. We always need to transfer out some money to MIH because of the county doesn't fully support us with the funding on it. So this has always been the case. These lines are a snapshot of just how we look at our annual operating revenues versus expenses, and if a better shot on the revenue, this tab down here, the revenue versus expense projection. But I try to summarize everything on this tab just to give us a snapshot of everything. Here's that reserve fund that I was mentioning. We are projecting that we'll have a little over $6 million at the end of this year, but we need about $6.2 million, which means we're going to transfer in 184,000 into the reserve fund. Benefits fund, we actually have some extra funds there. We're starting with 3.2 million. We need 2.8 million for our budget with a reserve level that to carry our possible left one expenses. Our left one expenses can vary greatly depending on if anybody needs assisted or nursing home. And so we carry extra funds there to cover for up to 3 years of unanticipated costs or liabilities. Our capital fund is going to be, actually might even be a little bit less than that, because even late today there was a couple of expenses that I've approved, but in the neighborhood of 1 to 1.3 million. We're going to transfer in almost 6 million for budgeted purposes next year, a little over 4.1 million, which will leave us at the end of our projected end, this should say 2026, sorry. This end of 2026 capital fund of about 3.2 million. These two line items here are our impact fee, what we, and I just show it as an in and out of what we're collecting and what it's costing for the LTGO bond payment. If you look over at this side of the spreadsheet, you can see where our LTGO, what we gained in revenue here, and any other expenses and so forth, and then our net fund, and then that carryover. The LTGO payment, as you can see, will finish out in 2028. But we look at our next year's expense payment, which is going to be 681,550, and we're anticipating a net fund at the end of this year of just under 2 million. So it'll be able to cover, that 681,000 and still have some extra. Yes.
How come those two amounts are exactly equal?
I do that purposefully, but the reason why I do that is just in case we don't have the funds necessary to cover the LTGO bond payment from impact fees, and we have to pull from operating funds or our capital fund. So I show it as kind of an in and out, just in case we didn't have the impact fees. We've never had that situation, but that's how I track it. And then our overall summary here again, the anticipated 2026 revenues and expenses. Oh, and this has nothing to do with anything that's ALS. The ALS budget is an in and out reimbursement budget, and this is just focusing on the suppression side. Okay. Our projected annual net at the end of 2026 is about just under 690,000 in the black. And then our general fund, as I mentioned up at the top, it's about 23.8 million. We will have about just under 18 million at the end of next year. And I always look beyond next year. I look at 2027 here. which is basically taking our starting, or our need for funds. If you look at this, the formula, I look at what we projected we needed, for 2026 up here, and then I add 6%, and that's just how I always want to look to make sure that whatever we end up with at the end of next year is enough to take care of the following first quarter year. That makes sense. So that we're not setting ourselves up for, scrambling to cover. Which, again, so we need 8.8 million in our general fund at the end of next year for the start of 2027. And we're currently, with everything that I've just shown you, we're carrying an extra 9 million over beyond that. If we look at our total cash on hand and reserves, again, we're carrying a bunch of extra, or I should say extra. We're carrying a bunch of different reserves and carryover right now, and about 70%. Questions on that before I move to another tab? Yes.
So that extra carryover above and beyond what's needed seems fairly significant. Is that as you want it, or is that something that we can, I guess my thought is, if we have tons of extra carryover, does that mean that we could conceivably reduce our benefit charge, or or do we want to do this strategically what we want to do because it's the best thing?
Great questions, and that's for this, for the board, and I'm going to give you some recommendations, and this is for the board to weigh in on those recommendations. There are some things that we have not budgeted for that may come into play in 2026, so it would behoove us probably to have some extra funds. Like, for example, we're not budgeting for an expansion of the shop, but that's something that we will likely need to do beyond just some architect and engineering fees of 100,000, but it could cost us upwards of 4 million, or who knows what it's going to cost, depending on our options. We are pursuing 3 different paths there, so it could have a big impact. I'd also like to stay a little bit flexible and nimble with the fact that we are a new organization, and some of this is, I don't feel as confident, as I would if you'd asked me a couple of years ago with our regular budget, because I had a lot of track record and experience with that. Whereas I would like to stay a little bit flexible and nimble, and we still have a pretty good, I'll show you in just a minute, we do have a pretty good projected overall equipment levy rate. But it's a great question, because that's one that we all need to, well, especially you guys, need to weigh in on it and let me know what your comfort level is and where you'd like me to take this. So, okay.
Can you scroll up? So I'm looking at the annual transfer into the capital fund from revenue at 0.
Yes.
We're not contributing to the capital fund out of our annual revenues.
Correct.
And I think that's, never mind, that's both sides.
So there's 2 ways that we can transfer money in. I'm pulling it from the carryover, not from our revenue. And the reason for that is because we have extra in our carryover, and we didn't do the transfers this year, which is why we have extra money in our carryover, instead of taxing our taxpayers and pulling that money from an annual revenue source.
But in a normal year, there would be a set amount from revenues.
Correct. Nearly $2 million on an annual basis, inflated each year by, I think I've got a 5 or 6% inflator in there every year. So typically we would be transferring in 2 million to cover costs, but with our capital, and we have some pretty high, capital, a pretty high capital budget for 2026, but because of the carryover, I don't want to tax her. And again, that's a philosophical, this is just me with my recommendations. This is probably one of the biggest responsibilities that the board has, to making sure that you feel comfortable and the oversight for me in what I've developed. Or I should say we have developed. This tab here shows our equivalent levy rate. Please note that I did increase, I artificially kind of grabbed for this year, both in the North Shore and the shoreline, assessed valuation, but it shows like 100% increase from the year before, because I was like, I'm only going back 1 year, to try and get a snapshot, which is also why you see, a big the pictures are hiding it. Why you see a big increase in the assessed valuation there. This also shows our equivalent levy rate and a linear projection line.
So prior to 2025, those are shoreline.
Correct, these are just shoreline here. So those are shoreline, this is North Shore and shoreline. This is in with the new overall fire district that they call, the county calls District 64, 16. I didn't make this, I didn't, they,
Is it District 164 or 64?
64. That's how the county wanted to do it. I was like, okay, whatever. So, so this is our, as of, actually I should need to update that, it's as of today, that this is our assessed valuation, which is about a 9.3%. I'll show you, actually, that's not see. No, that is right, okay,
9% increase in AV.
as it stands right now. So, so anyway, so the next, I already showed you this tab, the cash on hand. This is the biggest snapshot here, the revenue versus expenses. And this is, this is where you could see where the sources of all the different things are. The property tax levy, you'll see it's at 70 cents, and that's because that is what we designed in the RFA. You might remember that. So that isn't going to change. It can't change. It will be 70 cents. Where we have adjustments is in the fire benefit charge. I have, for the purposes of tonight, and my suggestion is at 11.5 million, which is less than the combined fire benefit charge. Over here at 13.2, that was the combined between North Shore and Shoreline. But also recognize too that our property taxes from the fire levy have gone up from 20 million to 22 million, and that's because we increased the rate to 70 cents, which is higher than in both fire departments.
So what's our total revenue collection 2025 to 2026?
The comparison.
Yeah.
I can show that. So it's about 30 on the property taxes and fire benefit charge. It's 33.5 million versus 33 and almost a half million on this side. We've got some extra, we've got some increases in other places down here, between like say, well, everything, ALS overhead, the BLS allocations, transports, etc. Most things have gone up. There's been a couple that were like, about the same or gone down. I do want to bring your attention to the FER crest. We had and I put a note over here to the right, but we had a catch-up year this year, so that's why it's almost double. What we're looking at for 2026.
Is that because they failed to pay the prior year, or why is it a catch-up year?
Yeah, I had to. We had to make sure that they were paying and catching up with the contract that we had established.
So just going back to your comparison of 2025 to 2026, the combined revenue collection.
Yeah, I can show maybe a better picture is down here with total revenue. To get to, sorry to interrupt, but I think this is probably what you're looking at, is total revenue here. It's about a 6% increase of total revenue, which includes the fire benefit charge, taxes, our contracts, all this and that. So,
includes the recommended fire benefit charge increase.
yes.
Okay.
And this is our expenses for the year, which pull from this tab down here, the 2026 expenses. And so what we're projecting right now is about, and it showed in that summary tab too, of just under $690,000 in the black right now. There might be some other things that will come in between now and Monday, but this is where we're at. We're under budget, for expenses versus revenues at least. And then this is where I calculate out, that what we need to cover, for our 15% reserve fund. So that's pretty much it for tonight. We'll go through some of these other tabs on Monday. in greater detail. And again, you have this digitally so you can navigate around and take a look at, under the hood, so to speak. And you can, ask any questions you'd like me, where you'd like me to go on Monday. But the big thing here is, tonight is, do we feel good about an $11.5 million fire benefit charge? The equivalent levy rate at this time is $1.55. This line here, which is a decrease of, depending on whether you look compared to North Shore or you compare to Shoreline. Shoreline's at $1.16 and North Shore was at $1.12. So both, this is significantly less than both.
So, the reason I was asking about the comparison between the 2026 and the 2025 is I feel like, looking at the levy rate is good for sure, but I feel like trying to just figure out and quantify the impact on a taxpayer, like an individual person who pays property taxes and benefit charge, it's more looking at the increase in our, revenue collections year to year. Seems like that's a more accurate portrayal of how that's going to impact the taxpayer.
Right. This is that number. We're roughly the same.
Go back to the other number you were showing me. It was a 6% increase, and it was 39 million versus 42 million. You said it was a better thing.
This is our overall.
That versus the other.
Right. But where our taxpayers will feel it is up here.
Okay.
Where our taxpayers are feeling it is in their property tax levy and the fire benefit charge.
Right. So looking at that,
and that's at 0.16%.
So that's very stable.
Yes.
Okay. So I like that. That's kind of, because basically my philosophy would be, I think we should try to, minimize the increases to the extent we can possible. We want to fund the fire department adequately and not, overly pinch pennies, but we also want to, be as conservative as we can with the increases to taxpayers. So it looks like a relative wash to the revenue collection side, which is good.
And this was intentional of trying to hold true to what, as you guys were privy to, as we were doing the educational and informational campaign for the RFA. At that time, I was thinking in $2025, not 20. This is $2026, but in $2025, that we could be down towards around $1.08 if we were just through efficiencies and to combine things. And I felt like we could actually push it lower depending on what AB did and what we wanted to do with allocations of carryover, et cetera. And so I feel really good about this, not only because of the 0.16%, but it's less than what I was saying, and even in $2025. Now, understand too, in 2026 we have increased costs, so even keeping it in the same ballpark or less, I think is a really good thing. Now we did have decent AB. We had 9.31% right now. At least that's what's showing. That could change. We're also going to catch up. We don't know exactly what I should know by next Thursday. Hopefully, what the full retro catching up on our CBA. The retro check of ratifying the CBAs, which, by the way, we've TA'd the Chief Officer CBA as well, and I'll be bringing that to you guys on November 6th to consider for ratification. And I've sent it to you, and I can try and send you a red line version too. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like. I guess there's not really much change between that and the uniform, but I'm digressing and I can't because it's a special meeting. So let me get back on track.
Chief,
yes.
With only 0.16% increase in revenues from taxation, both fire benefit charge and property tax, but an overall increase of over 6% total revenues, where's the extra 6%?
It's coming from all these items here, and I can go through them. So like our ALS overhead, and maybe I pick out some of the bigger ones. Okay, so like our BLS allocation is going up because of assuming that the EMS levy passes. Our allocation goes up by 17%. BLS transports are gonna go up 8%. A lot of these will be tied to whatever our AB increase is at. I have it at 6% now. Where's another big one? Another big, no, hardly. Well, Bothell Fleet and Falls City Fleet, our expenses are going up, but so are our revenues, you know, because it is a reimbursement and revenue source. And that's predominant. I mean, all of these are, almost all of them are going up, except for some of the things I already noted, like the FertCrest, you know, piece is going down. The Bothell Executive Service ILA is going down a little bit. Our GMT was pretty much the same. And that is another potential, you know, reason why I want to carry over some extra funds. We have talked about this a little bit of like, is there a risk of GMT going away? Yeah, there is. But at the same time, I always thought that we'd see it coming from like a years out kind of notice, but I don't know if I have that good confidence anymore. So back to, you know, what we're carrying over, you know, that would give us some flexibility, because that would be a huge hit. That's a $3 million hit. But to answer your question, you know, these are the sources for, because you're right, the feeling that the taxpayers will get from the fire benefit charge and fire levy is really minimal. You know, well, I shouldn't say minimal. It's basically the same. And when you look at the assessed valuation increase, it's actually, they'll be getting charged, you know, basically the same as what they're getting charged this year. So from an equivalent levy rate, that's why the levy rate's going down so much too. But the rest of the funds to make up the 6% is coming from all these other, you know, revenue sources. I will mention too that this is an in and out. 400,000 on the deployments. Whatever I put in here for potential revenue, I put into the expense line item at the same level. So I have $400,000 on our expense line item for deployment overtime.
Chief, are there any revenues that the department gets from apparatus being deployed?
Yes.
And you have brush truck or a car that we're sending?
That's in this. And sometimes we make out, it depends on the type of deployment, and you're pretty familiar with this. It depends on the type of deployment as to what kind of reimbursement we get. And it also depends on what reimbursements we get for the overtime costs that are incurred. Typically, typically when we deploy, we get more with an apparatus. We get more in revenue than our cost. However, sometimes the apparatus come back and we need to repair things too. So there's a cost potentially at wear and tear and repair work that needs to occur with the apparatus when they come back. It depends.
Do you anticipate any kind of financial impacts, further developments with Bothell in 2026 or 2027?
This budget, aside from one point that I can go through on Monday, this budget does not reflect anything with Bothell, except for there's one, because most of the costs would be incurred in 2027, not 2026, with the exception of we would need to lean in before 2027 from an IT perspective. And so I budgeted an extra $40,000 on top of our contract with Norcom for our IT person, above and beyond their salary and benefits package, to pay for consulting or another part-time or something to lean into, you know, if Bothell happens, then we would need to do that. Other than that, this does not reflect anything.
And nothing's been further agreed to besides the executive ILA at this point, so, or nothing you can talk about, so that it would impact us financially.
Well, I mean, there is impacts to this from the executive ILA. I mean, yeah, we're continuing in 2026 with our executive ILA. And we have our fleet ILA, and we are We will get some reimbursement too from, on January 1, we'll be managing their staffing program, which, you know, I should probably bump up that, or just thinking about or create a new line item, you know. So we will get reimbursement for some work that our DVCs will be doing in managing their staffing program, depending on how much time they're actually spending. I've given an estimate as to what that's gonna cost, or what it's gonna cost them to do it, but we're gonna do a few months and really come up with a better number of actual time on task. And so we will get some extra reimbursement for that for our DVCs. I mean, I really think that that's pretty much it for 2026. And we'll know, well, I don't want to digress too much about it.
Okay.
So that's the financial pieces of it. Any questions? And again, the point for tonight is to give you a snapshot and a recommendation of where I think we should be on this. Again, we don't have to finalize this. This is the whole point of really tonight is to make sure that the public has an opportunity to weigh in on this, and for you all to see it and ask me any questions and see if we're comfortable with that number. It will not be set in stone until we set it by, you know, the final draft or the final budget and resolution.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with that number because I feel like we're in a good position, but we're also, you know, fortunate to be able to be conservative in our impact on the taxpayers.
I can stop sharing if there's any other questions, you know, just to bring up Lisa and Rick if you'd like, or do you want to keep this as a sharing? Is there any more questions on this?
Lisa and Rick are saying no too.
So did Commissioner Webster or Wong, did you have any questions about anything?
Not at this time for me. I'm still reviewing it, but it looks pretty good at this point.
If there is no other questions, then we will move to close the public hearing and return to our special meeting and close that out.
A continuation of the meeting.
If there's anything else you want to say, we closed it out to public. Public. Did you have anything?
No, I thought that the public meeting went 2 sessions. So.
Yeah, that seems to ring a bell with me. In the past, we've kind of had a more of an extended period for the hearing just to give more people a chance for input, but I don't know how.
I think we've done that in the past when we were still not as maybe cemented on and frankly, things could change. AAV is still going to continue to change over the next few weeks. There might be some other things that we may need to change, but I feel I gave a little extra on the revenue side to absorb any different changes to the expense. So I feel confident or fairly confident in the level of the fire revenue charge. So I don't believe in my recommendation. You don't believe you need to extend the public hearing, but it's entirely up to you all if you want to leave it open. You know, to the next meeting, there will be an opportunity for public comment. It is a public meeting on Monday. If anybody shows up, then there will be an opportunity for public comment at that meeting as well, before we finalize all of the budget.
Yeah,
but it's up to you. It's up to you all.
No, it's fine. I didn't know if we had didn't know if we had a legal responsibility to introduce the budgets, give citizens an opportunity to review it, and then come back with questions. Right.
You can leave it open for Monday and see if anybody else shows up.
Do you change the notice that we sent?
Oh,
Say anything about
yeah.
public hearing? Usually we just do our public hearing during our meeting and citizens come and then it closes.
Yeah.
That's our normal.
legally, we have to have the public hearing, but we always have the opportunity for public comment. So.
Yeah.
And you could, weigh that public comment. It's just, a public hearing has got a little bit more dynamics to it because it's more of a give and take. Again, up to the board.
I'm fine. That's, we're comfortable with that being the appropriate method.
6:06. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.